Okay, welcome to the next video lesson, which is teaching us about Python and applications of Python. So we're going to be working towards rotating points on the globe around Euler poles. So this is something you should have covered in class, and we're just going to use Python to see how that would work. So rotating points around Euler poles can be useful for tracking the history of continents as they've moved around throughout history, and perhaps predicting where continents will move in the future. Okay, but before we can do that, before we can rotate around Euler poles, we first might like to read some data files. So in this video lab, we're going to be using an Excel file, which has a series of latitudes and longitudes. And we want to write a Python script that will read in that data into Python. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do that. So the first thing I'd like you to do is open your Anaconda prompt. So in Windows, we open the app menu, search for Anaconda, and we'll open this Anaconda prompt. And again, you'll notice when you open Anaconda prompt that we're in the base environment. So I'd like you to move to the mapping environment. Anaconda, activate mapping environment, and see now we're in the mapping environment. Okay, so to be able to read data into Python from Excel, we need to install another package. So down here we have this Conda install. We're installing this package OpenPyXL. Okay, so you can copy that, paste it into your terminal, and press enter, and that will install OpenPyXL. So I've already installed OpenPyXL, so I'm not going to repeat that install, but perhaps you can pause the video and install that, and then resume the video once that is finished installing. Okay, but once that is installed, once OpenPyXL is installed, then we're gonna start up Spider. Okay, so I'm gonna now that I have Spider open, I'm gonna open a new file. Get rid of this junk and save the file. I'll save it as lab5. Call it whatever you want, as long as you remember to end your file in .py. Okay, so let's get going. So the first thing I want to do here is import all the functions that I need. So I think I might just borrow those from the previous file. So here I'm importing NumPy, I'm importing Matplotlib, and I'm importing Cartopy, just like before, so we can plot things. But now I also want to import something else, and this has a slightly different terminology. So I'll just type it and then I'll explain what I'm doing. OpenPyXL import load workbook. Okay, so this line here is saying from this package that we just installed, OpenPyXL, I want you to import load workbook. So we're only importing this function load workbook, not the whole OpenPyXL. Okay, so this is something that you might see when you're importing packages. Okay, so now I want to learn how to import some data. Okay, so you might see in this folder that I have here, where I'm storing all my Python codes. So here's lab Python 5 that we're working on at the moment. Up the top here, I have some coordinates of Australia, an edited version of that. Okay, and if I open up that file, you can see that I have a column of latitudes and a column of longitudes, and these correspond to points around the coastline of Australia. Okay, so going back to Python now, what I want to do is to import this worksheet. Okay, so it's actually fairly easy. I'm going to say WB is equal to load workbook, and then I'm going to write in the name of my Excel file. Coordinates Australia, edited version, XLSX. And so actually I have an edited version because I wanted to make sure that these latitudes were all northings and these longitudes were all eastings. So if you don't have northings and eastings, you may need to do an extra step, but for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm just going to leave it as it is. Okay, so notice also that our data is stored in sheet 1. So this is the default name actually, but okay, our data is stored in the sheet which is named sheet 1. So in Python, I need to be able to tell it which sheet I should be looking at in this workbook. Okay. So this line here, line 6, loads the whole entire Excel spreadsheet, the workbook, Coordinates Australia Edit. This line here, line 7, loads only the sheet 1. Okay. So this is where the data is stored. Okay, so now I want to extract latitudes and longitudes from this workbook. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an empty array to start with, which I'm going to fill up with the data from the Excel sheets. Okay, so now I've got 2 empty arrays. Now I need to start reading the spreadsheets. So again, if I come back to the spreadsheet, just focusing on latitude for the moment, the data that I need to read begins at B3, and ends at B18. Okay, so I need to iterate over all of these points here. So remember, if I'm iterating, I can use a for loop. So for each row in sheet B3 to B18. Okay, so recall, that should be row. Recall that B3 to B18 corresponds to my latitude B3 to B18, corresponds to B3 to B18 corresponds to all my latitude data. Okay, and now I've taken all that data, and so now I need to iterate over for each cell. So for each cell in that row of data, well, it's actually a column, but okay, I'll call it a row. So for each cell within that row, B3 to B18, I want to append the value of that cell. Okay, so we load the workbook. We say we only want the data on the sheet 1. For each row in this range here, B3 to B18, so B3 to B18, and then for each, we call that row, and then for each cell within that range there, we read each cell individually and append it to the latitude array that we've created. Okay, so we better do the same thing for the longitudinal data. So that is in column C in your Excel workbook. Okay, and so that is everything actually. So that should read all the data. But let's just double check. So let's print it. ALAT and print A1. So save that and run. And here is all the latitude data, and here is the longitude data. And you should check it with Excel, but I can already tell that it's exactly the same. So we have successfully read all this data here. Let's also plot these points on the map. Okay. So similar to last time, I'm going to create an axis. Axis equals plot.axes. I'm going to use the same projection, the Robinson projection. But this time I'm actually going to make the longitude something closer to Australia, seeing as this is where my data is from. So my longitude is 150, which is just off the east coast of Australia. Okay. I'm also going to add an extra command in here that we haven't seen before. So x.stockImage, stock.img, it's just going to add basically a picture of the world so it looks a little bit prettier. Okay, so now I have all this data loaded into ALAT and ALONG, these arrays, and now I need to plot that point on the map one by one. So I'm going to iterate over each entry in ALAT and ALONG. So for I in range 0 to length of ALAT, what I'm going to do is I'm going to plot that, right? So plt.plot. So my first point is going to be A long I. Second point is going to be A lat I. I want to get rid of this actually, because I don't want to just plot just like that. So after I enter the longitude and the latitude, I'm going to put a comma, press enter. I want to plot my points being blue. I don't want any line associated with those points. I'm going to say line width equals 0, and I'm going to say marker equals a circle. And then finally, I'm going to put this transform ccrs dot geodetic. So if I haven't made a mistake, this should plot all the points in that Excel file which circles Australia. All those points circle Australia. And I must have spelled something wrong. Geodetic. I think I need a capital G, in fact. Let's try that and see if that fixes my problem. Okay, great. So you can see here now, I have this lovely world map. So this nice image of the map comes from this command x.stockimg. And now I've iterated over all these points in this Excel file that I've now read into Python, and you can see that they encircle Australia. So we've surrounded the Australians, and well, in the next lab, we'll rotate those points around an Euler pole.